Morning, everybody. This is Jeremy Martin from Cinco Medicos, and in this video, I wanted to discuss an issue that I've been thinking a lot about, and that is the difference between integrity and experience, and which is more important when you're looking for a practitioner. And I think this matter actually concerns a lot of different fields and vocations. So, whether you're a yoga instructor, a rabbi, a therapist, a death doula, a bodyworker, a midwife, a priest, a breathwork facilitator, maybe you're a social worker or a kambo practitioner, you're always going to be concerned with, working in integrity and how much experience you have. And guests are also going to be considering these factors. So, a lot of us, I'll say at the outset, would prefer to avoid talking about matters of morality and ethics. After all, who decides what we should or shouldn't do other than ourselves? And so having external ethics committees decide what's legal and things like that just seems often like a matter of how we can get our certification or our degree. And plus, haven't we had enough moralizing and finger wagging for a lifetime? Hasn't the idea of sin made us more prone to feeling more guilty and ashamed of ourselves, not less? And these are all really good questions, I think. But ethics and morality also deal with the most important elements of the human experience and sometimes the most fascinating. We're talking about issues of money, power, love, sex, truth, war and peace, personal responsibility, awareness, the ego, philosophy, what the meaning of consent or informed consent is, the right to privacy and confidentiality, our reputation, the approval of others, and even the mystery, the deepest questions that we have regarding what our very existence is for and about. And what I mean by that is whether we're here to learn from our mistakes, or if there even exists such a thing as mistakes, and ask things like, how well did I love? How fully did I live? How deeply did I let go? How much did I learn? Or are we here just to experience creation with total free will, without any conditions or judgment about the decisions and actions that we've taken or made? So these questions, I think, are really vital, but also really interesting to ask both for practitioners and participants. It's also important to realize that morality is subjective. It's a matter of opinion, of perspective, and our own discernment about what we consider right or wrong. And it also always changes over time, over the generations, and tends to vary a lot between cultures. What we consider moral or immoral in American culture may differ than in Aboriginal culture. So we could also note that certain crimes now are no longer punished or are punished that weren't. And we could also say that sex before marriage was blasphemy. And it's like, now who cares? But basically, when it comes down to morality, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears have been shed in its name. It really begs us to ask whether it's actually setting out to do what it says it wants to do. Even our reaction to people who act morally pure of heart kind of makes us want to gag or puke. And it kind of has this air of righteousness, of acting holier than thou, and really not seeing others as your equal. And plus, I think it smacks of dishonesty, like you never did anything wrong or thought any dirty thoughts or have a shadow, or if you've transcended us lowly humans, why are you still here, talking to us? But back to healing it, I think in helping and doing no harm, we really have no choice but to consider ethical matters, because an ethical relationship itself, in its very nature, is healing. Unethical relationships, on the other hand, can really traumatize us even more deeply, especially if we've had some kind of ethical transgression. So in a way, one could argue that yeah, we learn from ethical missteps, both intentional and unintentional. Um, a lot of ethical missteps just happen to be the practitioner gaining experience. So the two matters really do interweave. But there are also other ways of learning how not to hurt others than simply by hurting others and then learning not to do that later on. When it also comes to experience, personally, I believe that yes, experience certainly matters when looking for a practitioner, but it also matters how much experience the person has and how the person has gained that experience. On one plane, you know that others have done more. Direct experience is the best way to really know anything, and far more than indirect transmission of that knowledge through verbal or written teaching. And so in that sense, an experienced individual can guide people safely, but not necessarily. And they've probably seen many diverse circumstances. They can make sense of patterns that then tie a current situation, such as with a guest or a client, that appear similar to past situations. So if a doctor has seen thousands of patients, when they see another one that looks similar or resembles a past patient, they can use that experience to their advantage. They have that memory. They carry that instinct and wisdom in their body, in their cellular memory, in their mind of how to respond. In the end, how many books we've read, how many degrees we have, or master classes we've taken, when added together, all that kind of weighs a lot less when compared to the university of life. And ultimately, we can only speak from experience. Everything else would be speaking from someone else's. So when I read a book, I'm speaking from the experience of the author. But when we compare experience and integrity, it's quite interesting because experience you can only gain in years of practice, in the number of clients served, in the types of locations and positions that you've held. And so, to a prospective client or participant, experience looks on the outset much more impressive because partly it's objective. You can measure those years of apprenticeship, of dieting, of serving others, and also partly because we measure that and believe we can trust someone through that measurement. So it confers a type of authority. And integrity, on the other hand, you really can't measure objectively. You can't see how much integrity a person has. You can judge and discern from the way someone acts or behaves, but it's always a subjective element to the practitioner and participant relationship. So you could rely on testimonials and referrals, but that is the experience of others. And in general, you never really know. And that's in contrast to experience being an objective measure. And experience, furthermore, you only gain with time. You only get more experienced. You can never get less experienced in something. And integrity you can either gain or lose based on the subjective discernment or judgment of other people. Like beauty, integrity is really just in the eye of the beholder. So I'd also add that I can only really speak from my own experience. I can't say which one is more important definitively. I can, however, report that I've sat with multiple people who have had many more years, sometimes even decades more experience than I have, and I've witnessed what I would consider dangerously unethical behavior from these same practitioners. Many I've found have issues around money and power. A few others have violated sexual boundaries, or they've leveraged participants' view of them, really the perception that because the practitioner has so many years of experience, they have more authority than the participant or have more power to decide than the person. So it's like seeing a psychiatrist. They have 30 years of experience being a psychiatrist, and what do I know about my mental health? What do I know about the pills that they're trying to prescribe me? And And therefore, this has led the practitioner sometimes, in my experience, to take psychological, emotional, and sometimes even financial advantage of people. And they tend to do this whether consciously or not because they recognize that those people are in need of healing, and by and large, they are the most vulnerable. They're the most suggestible to outside influence, regardless of whether they are in what people call an altered state of consciousness or in an ordinary state of consciousness. So all of that personal experience has led me to think that just because you are experienced doesn't necessarily mean that you're looking out for someone else's best interest. It's not a sufficient condition. In fact, a lot of times the total opposite is the case. Experience just indicates that you have spent more time in a particular space, and over that time and space, you've amassed a wider breadth and depth of physical and metaphysical knowledge about a particular thing or activity. And that knowledge, by its very nature, has the innate power to be used in really one of three ways: either to help people, to hurt people, or to do nothing and to remain neutral. So your experience really has the power to serve and protect, to remain quiet on the sidelines, or to exploit and take advantage. And we see this with law enforcement, for example. A policeman or security guard, they're neither good nor bad, no matter how many years of experience they have serving on the force. Really, what it comes down to is the integrity that they have behind that experience in the driver's seat. So in my view, experience is a lot like fuel. Either it can drive you forward or in reverse, left or right, further on or off course, or you can just idle in the driveway with it. Whereas integrity is much more like our inner GPS system. We have one naturally, innately, and the more we pay attention to who and where we are, where we're at, who we're with, what we're thinking and doing, what others need or don't need, and how we respond to our own reality, how we choose to experience it and interpret it, and how we respond to the reality and experience of others, then the better chance or probability we have of getting closer to our destination, where we want to go, although we may truly never arrive there. And all of where we want to go depends on our integrity, which again is subjective. So I'll just close by saying that experience can make practitioners more predisposed to care and respect, or more a predator who consciously or unconsciously hunts the physically, emotionally, and psychologically weaker, and yet ironically is also hunted down and sometimes even captured by their own shadow in the process. So integrity, meanwhile, is at once a virtue that we're born with and possess innately in our own kind of energetic signature, each of which is unique, and one that over our lifetime of experiences, we can either grow through mindful tending, through practice and self-reflection, or neglect like a plant, through thoughtless action, through outward projection, transference and countertransference, through self-neglect and willful ignorance. In other words, experience can either feed or kill one's innate integrity, depending on how much and how deeply we know thyself, and how much we know others as a reflection and perception of our own inner reality. And it reminds me a lot of what the Dalai Lama said. He said, if we can't imagine at least the potential impact of our actions on other people, then we have no means to discriminate between harming and non-harming. And we always hear in the healing space about do no harm, the Hippocratic Oath. And in order to do no harm, we need to know ourselves. What I don't know about myself can unintentionally harm you. And it doesn't matter how much experience I have. If I don't know myself well through that experience, then my integrity suffers. Now, in my own practice at Cinco Medicos, I have drafted an ethical code of conduct, which I revise yearly, and it's coming to the turn of the year, so it's time for me to revisit that. And this isn't to virtue signal or anything. It's to virtually signal why I feel ethics is integral to healing and as a way for me to know myself better and my own limitations more deeply so that I can hopefully transcend them. And so that if I do inevitably err as humans do, I can divinely forgive and learn from that experience. So thanks for watching. This has been fun to make and to reflect on. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.